Good afternoon. My name is Laurie McKenzie. I am a staff member at Organic Seed Alliance, and I'm going to tell you about another team project. And this one's called the Northern Organic Vegetable Improvement Collaborative. We've been working on it for 4 years. It's funded through an OREI grant. We hope to continue working on it through another 2 cycles of 4-year granting from OREI. We've just completed the first cycle, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about the background of the project and kind of the nuts and bolts of the project, and then share with you some of our greatest successes and some of our biggest challenges. This project was created to bring together a network of farmers, researchers, breeders, seeds people, chefs, eaters, and folks to come together to identify varieties that perform optimally under organic conditions, to breed new varieties that also perform optimally in organic conditions, to cultivate partnerships among all those different entities, and to provide both seed skill education and plant breeding education. As I mentioned, it's a team project. The lead researcher is here at Oregon State University. It's Jim Myers. So OSU works in partnership with Organic Seed Alliance, the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and Cornell. And the USDA has played a big part in this project as well. There are 5 crops involved in the NOVIC project that are common to all of those regions. These crops are broccoli, carrots, sweet corn, snap peas, and butternut squash. And the idea was to create a trialing network across this northern tier of the United States. In each of these 4 years, there were 9 different varieties of each of these 5 crops. And 5 of those varieties were common across all of those locations in the northern tier every year. Each region also had a farmer's choice crop that could be changed from year to year or continued from year to year. So each region ended up with 6 crops per year, but these 5 were common across all locations. For the broccoli, we were looking for each of these crops also had a breeding objective. The breeding objective for the broccoli was to come up with something that's heat tolerant. One of the goals of this project was to provide season extension. And broccoli doesn't necessarily like real hot conditions. It tends to bolt and kind of get some head rot. So we were looking to do our breeding work to improve that. The sweet corn project was aimed at breeding and open pollinated. All of these breeding objectives were for open pollinated varieties. And the sweet corn project was to create an open pollinated, sugary enhanced variety that had good cold soil emergence. The carrot project, the breeding objective was to create a carrot that has a really strong, robust top that can overwinter and stay in the ground and be pulled out of the ground in February or March. The snap pea breeding objective was also for heat. Snap peas tend to get really stringy when it's hot, so we were looking to breed a snap pea that could tolerate hot conditions and not be terribly stringy. And the butternut squash project was to create a butternut squash that has excellent storability, because butternut generally doesn't tend to last real well in storage. One of the unique aspects of this project was the trial design. It's called a mother-daughter trial design. Each region had a mother site, which was generally a university research farm, and those had replicated trials. As you can see, there were 3 replications at each of those mother sites. We also felt it was really important to get out and do on-farm trials to involve farmers in our work, as well as to get an idea of how do these perform on an actual working farm, because sometimes that's different than a research farm. So we did daughter sites that each served as a single replication. So one farm would have 1 replication of broccoli, another farm would have another replication, and a third farm would serve as a 3rd replication. So all told, there would be 6 replications of each crop in every location. Now I'd like to tell you about some of the big successes that each region enjoyed. The Oregon group led the snap pea breeding in conjunction with our colleague Michael Mazurk, who is also collaborating with us on that work. These are 2 varieties, S1423 and S1431, that are due to be released, in part because they were included in these variety trials. And data collected over all those regions and over the 4 years provided Jim Myers the information he needed to make a decision about which one was ready for release, and the qualities that were important came true in our trialing work and our evaluation work, that these were really superior varieties and they will be released shortly. These are two varieties that came into our trialing work a little bit later on. They're from Jonathan Spiro, who's here with us at the conference. I encourage you to chat him up if you find him. He's a farmer breeder, and he bred these two varieties. They're called Tuxana and Top Hat, and they did really well. They're both OPs. They were included in the trial for 2 years, and we were very impressed with them. So we were excited to involve him in the project and promote his work. One of the big successes that came out of every region was that this trialing really helped farmers adapt varieties, not only identify them, but to adopt them and say, oh, wow, that really does perform well on my farm, and I really like it. And we could provide them with that information through the trialing and show them where the seed sources could be found. The third big success of Oregon was broccoli. There were three populations. These are three distinct populations that came out of Jim Myers' work. Two of them are farmer breeder varieties, and one of them is the OSU variety that Jim Myers developed. The upper left one is from OSU. The upper right is from Julie Puitt. She's also here with us at the conference. And the one down on the bottom is called Solstice, also developed by Jonathan Spiro. And that one is currently out for release. You can get it through Siskiyou Seeds and I think a number of other seed sources. So we were really happy to see that these varieties, the breeding for these varieties was all supported by the NOVIC project, and the farmer involvement was really terrific. They gained skills, and we got to promote their excellent materials. One of the poster successes for Oregon is our pepper project. This was our farmer choice crop for the first 2 years. And the goal was to identify a variety that could replace Gypsy, which is an F1 hybrid that a lot of farmers rely on and really like. And Stocky Red Roaster is a pepper developed by Frank Morton in one of his breeding projects. You can hear more about that tomorrow in the breeding out of hybrids session. We found it had great economic and agronomic qualities. And Lane Selman was instrumental in setting up this tasting in Portland, where we invited chefs, food writers, farmers, growers, and eaters of all types. And we identified Stocky Red Roaster as a real winner. And through our trialing efforts, through our outreach efforts, and through that project, Frank Morton's sales of Stocky Red Roaster quadrupled within the next 2 years. The Washington group worked with dry beans for one of their crop choices. And the one on the top, the speckled one, is King of the Early. And on the bottom is Swedish Brown. This was a really great thing to find, that you can actually grow dry beans successfully in Western Washington. There were many people who thought you couldn't. So we did a trial and we found out that in fact you can, and they are excellent beans. You can talk to Nash Huber in particular about them. He grows a lot of King of the Early. The other great success is there's a continuing interest in cabbage. These are both varieties that are grown by Nash Huber. He grows them both for a crop, vegetable crop and a seed crop. And he's going to be releasing the seed. He has released some of the seed to Uprising, and he's also, I understand, going to be doing some production and commercial sales of it himself. So this is a project that actually is continuing under the Washington and Oregon Specialty Crops Block Grant, where we're doing overwintering work with onions, cabbage, and chicory, and purple sprouting broccoli. The New York group was very successful in breeding and having the breeding work supported of a variety called Honey Nut. And maybe you've heard of this. It's in the High Mowing Seed Catalog. It's a small, kind of compact, excellent tasting butternut squash. If any of you know of the Stone Barn Center for Food and Agriculture, they were highly involved in selection of this, and it's been very successful getting it out to farms, and farmers have adopted it and have found it to be a very successful and wonderful squash. This is Iron Lady tomato that was included in one of the farmer choice crop trials for the New York region. It was bred at Cornell, and The Northwest struggles with a lot of blight issues because it can be quite warm and wet there, and this tomato has a trio of resistances to early blight, late blight, and septoria leaf spot. And through the trials, it was found to really be a stellar variety, and that adoption has really helped that variety get out and about. In Wisconsin, one of the big successes is corn. The Wisconsin team initiated a collaborative breeding project with Martin Diffley and Bill Tracy and several of Bill Tracy's graduate students. The variety on the left is soon to be released and soon to be named, which is very exciting. The variety on the right is shortly behind it and is actually the food co-op in Port Townsend has pledged several $1,000s for us to continue the trialing work to identify varieties of corn that can be grown in our area where we don't have a lot of heat. And this variety on the right is a great contender. They also found that honey nut was very popular and worked very well in the environments and the farms in Wisconsin. So that's been adapted there as well. So honey nut is off to a great start. Some of the challenges that we've had with this project was creating a cohesion of methods. As I'm sure all of you know, when you start a new project, there's quite a learning curve. And this was an extremely ambitious project and still is. We were aiming to create this trialing network over a number of states with about 30 to 40 on-farm trial sites and 30 to 40 collaborating farmers. So we had a lot of communication to do. We did a great job, but we had a lot to learn. The trial management and design was a bit of a challenge as well. Those daughter sites allowed us to get the sense of how the varieties performed on farm, but it was pretty difficult to travel to the farms and communicate with the farmers and make sure we were getting to every trial at the peak time when we really wanted to evaluate for flavor and all the qualities we were looking for. So that was kind of a constant challenge. It was a fun one, but it was definitely a big one. One of the big successes that has come out is the online database and website. This is hosted by eOrganic, and you can find it online by just searching NOVIC, and it's one of either the first thing or one of the first things that should pop up. Part of what's very exciting about this is it houses a database for all of the trial results. And the intention is that this database will be up, anyone will be able to upload trial results. And so it's not limited to the 5 crops we worked on for the NOVIC project, but is pretty much limitless in its potential. Everyone was really excited and had a lot of success in building connections and relationships. Every year there were field days in every location where all the growers were invited, all the local community was invited, seeds people and seeds representatives would show up, and we would get to show off the trials and share information and share what we had learned. We also had yearly grower meetings with all of our cooperating farmers where we'd get together and discuss how the trials went, what went well, what didn't go well, what we wanted to change for the year ahead, as well as just chatting and building relationships. We conducted 4 plant breeding and variety improvement courses, 1 in each location across those 4 years, and those were incredibly successful. They were aimed at teaching farmers and seeds people and community people the skills of seed saving, variety improvement, and plant breeding. The NOVIC project supported a number of graduate students. My work was actually supported through the NOVIC project. We supported 3 master's students and 1 PhD student, and that was a really important component of the project overall. And it was fun just to figure it out together. As I mentioned, it was a pretty big learning curve, and there was a lot to figure out, but it helped build those relationships and solidify those relationships when we could come together and say, hey, this isn't working, what do we do? And share ideas. And one of a constant stream of feedback that we got from our cooperating growers was we love getting together. When we get together and have these field days and these meetings, and we just get to share and we get to communicate about what we're doing, that is so incredibly valuable. So creating, improving, and strengthening these networks between farmers, growers, seeds people, researchers, plant breeders has been incredibly valuable, and I think has inspired continued breeding work, the CIOA project, the overwintering trialing project that we're doing between Oregon and Washington. This work continues now, and we're very excited that the Farm Bill is hopefully going through to secure and maintain funding for organic research and organic projects. So this work will continue, and it is continuing, and we're very excited about the lessons we learned and moving forward. So thank you very much.